Als wie me 40 bei ihnen, als kommt die Jante von Chanukah, die zählt man den Nissen von Chanukah, als kommt die Jante von Purim, lenkt man die Megille, und die zählt den Nissen von Purim, als kommt Pesach, die zählt man den Nissen von Yetzias Mitzrayim. Jetzt ist da ein junger Mann, wo sein Tate gehabt am Meredikens Schuss, was der Rebbe hat ihm reingerufen, saß Chanukah, und hat, was ist in Jedur heint, und hat ihm besagt gesagt, man soll machen dem Farbrengen. Und nachdem dort die ganze ascetische Stalze, wie hat es gemacht, und wenn er gewollt gehen abzahlen, und wird der Rebbe zugezeichnet. Hayes, als leider sind nicht da mit uns, et men beten sein Sohn, Echet Arav und a größer Asken, R Shimon Hecht, soll die zählen die Megillas von Rosh Kislev, und nachdem vorstellen, unser Gast, was ist bei ihm ist ein guter Freund im Rebbe, hat gekollt jetzt in Spain, wegen der Konferenz, und der Rebbe hat ihm gesagt, soll callen, und er hat gekollt Shamir, und er gekollt Shamir, und gekollt Bergen, und er gekollt alle Chevre, und er tut allemal, was er kann. Und man beten R Shimon Hecht.
L'chaim, der Ewigste soll helfen, als der Rebbe soll sein gesund und mekarov mamish und führen l'kabel pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. L'chaim. Being that my father, L'chaim L'vracha, when he would speak here, would speak in English, I will try to keep the same tradition. In essence, the connection with my father and the Rebbe Shlita, when they gave to Zeis Chanukah, actually started Shmini Atzeres, when the Rebbe Shlita was coming back from Akofis. My father was the way a Yid is supposed to be Simchas Torah, and being that he was the Rebbe's official English translator, when the Rebbe was going back to his place after the first Akofah, my father told the Rebbe Shlita in English, Rebbe, next year in Yerushalayim. And the Rebbe turned around and said, better than now. It took a few moments until my father to realize what exactly the Rebbe meant. But as time elapsed, he realized what the Rebbe was referring to. Sunday, Aleph the Pashas Vayigash was Erev Zeis Chanukah, and as you all know, throughout the beginning of Tavshin Lamed Ches, the Rebbe did not come down to Farbrengen, and the fact that he came down for the rally with children was a big surprise to everyone, and it was made up that after Mincha, the Rebbe would only give out dimes. If the mincha was over, the Rebbe turned to my father and he asked, "Jetzt, was it to say there? What's going to happen now?" So my father said, "The Rebbe is telling the dimes, and then he's going to go back up to his room." So the Rebbe asked, "Was will schon Potter werden für mir?" So my father said, "Chas v'sholem." But ich will nicht nehmen the Rebbe's Zeit, and being that the Rebbe's time is precious, so the Rebbe said, "Nein, ich will reden." At that time, being that they did not expect the Rebbe to speak, there was only one microphone. And it was up, I guess they bought, I happened not to be at that rally, but when I was told over, they quickly brought up the one microphone to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe showed to my father to come up to stand next to him to do the translation. My father said, oh no, I'm not going up there. The Rebbe showed with his hand again, and of course he had no choice, and he had to go back, he had to go up and do the translation. After, on his way out, the Rebbe turned to my father and he told him, Agresi Yashikoyach Fadenachas Ruach. The next day at around 12 o'clock, he was called by Rabbi Grona to come. The Rebbe wants to see him. He went into the Rebbe's room, and again the Rebbe gave him a Yashikoyach Fadegresi Nachas Ruach was Geirim Gewen Nechten. Again, we saw that the Rebbe had, again, like I said, I was not at that rally, so I can't tell you exactly what happened. But the Rebbe was very, very happy from that rally, and again, he thanked him for the big Nachas Ruach. And he told him that if you'll send in the Sikha in English, you'll get it translated, I'll be magiyit, and I'll send it out. And he said, Tome nicht, ich hab genug Arbeit on them, and he pointed to all the papers that were on his table. Afterwards, he told him, ich hab geguckt for a Bal Meritz and a Bal Seid. And he left. Which means I'm looking around for someone who can get something done, and also someone who's very secretive. And after he said that, he knew how my father knows how to keep a secret, so of course he smiled. And he told him, I want to make a Farbrengen this afternoon, and I want to wash, there should be chalis and bottles of mashke to give out. He said, don't worry, I'll give you the money. My father said, don't worry, I don't need the money. No. And he told him that if you want, you can tell your brothers. Because he's my uncles, that if you want, my father, the Rebbe gave him permission. I guess the Rebbe knew that if he should tell him, they shouldn't tell anybody, that's going to be nisoyah for my father, which is going to be impossible to keep. So he gave him one lead, so he should be able to at least tell one person, or a few people, his brothers. No, but my father, he didn't want to only satisfy with his brother. He said, what about Halbestam? Can I say Halbestam? The Rebbe said, Heinzige Zeit in the dot tapes. Okay, maybe they'll be able to listen over to the Farbrengen later. You know, there's no reason to tell Halbestam beforehand. So what about the yeshiva? The Rebbe said, if you'll tell the yeshiva, it's just as if you're telling Australia. Them you better not tell. Luckily, my father didn't forget that I was learning in Maristan at that time. So again, he wanted to, if you recall the Pasha a few weeks ago in the Eibishter, hat sich gebeten, Abraham hat sich gebeten by the Eibishter to try to save, likewise my father tried any way to try to get as many people to come. So the Rebbe told my father then that, you're running a lot of institutions, tell them that they should come in for one of the meisters, but they should not know what the reason was, and Taka, so it was, at that time, when my father was in Yechidus, I was my way back to Maristan. As soon as I came back to Maristan, I had an emergency. I should immediately call my father. And that wasn't often that my father used to call me to yeshiva. My heart started to clap. What emergency? As soon as I get there, I should call. And my father told me what happened. And quick, I went into yeshiva. I told Azal, let's go. We just came. Mamish, 5 minutes. I said, let's go back to New York. One of the Rosh Hashivas from Tiferes looked at me like I'm mamish crazy. I said, I don't know what's going to be, maybe dollars, we got to go back. And I said, listen, just go back. A few cars who came back, and they did not regret that they came back. But the Rebbe told my father then that he should make sure to keep it a secret and no one should know. And okay. He came out of Yechidis, and Rabbi Grona asked him, the Rebbe also told him, ich habe keinen nicht erzählt, I feel Chodukah from Grona und Klein, ich habe nicht erzählt. So therefore, make sure don't tell anybody. He came out, and Rabbi Grona asked him, what happened? He said, I tell you, sometimes I mamish don't understand the Rebbe. I don't understand him. And that's where he ended. He ran away at Al Sugagate that everyone knows, and the Rebbe came down, when the Rebbe came down the Yemel to wash, there were two big, Amalek Zeiten, by the Farbrengen, there used to be two big round challahs. Heintige Zeit, they make them very small. My father got, you know, the chasana chalas that you have. He had two big ones like that laying on the Rebbe's table. The Rebbe gave a look and gave a big smile at my father, and he washed. After the Farbrengen, when he went over for Keshel Bracha, the Rebbe, he told the Rebbe, "Chav Alske Thomas the Rebbe Gehasen," and the Rebbe gave him 2 bottles of mashke that time, and he said, "Keflaim with the Shia." That's it. The next day, again at around 12 o'clock, he gets again a call from Rabbi Grona that the Rebbe wants to see you. He came into the Rebbe's room, and the Rebbe again told him, "I didn't want to tell you yesterday, B'shas Keshel Bracha, because there were too many people listening. But Agreise Yashikoyach V'als Mesader Zayin." And then he asked him, "Take, you know, how did it go?" And the Rebbe, it was very interesting that the Rebbe America, everyone who was there. He asked him, "How did Betel Eunuch know?" Betel Eunuch was there. What was he doing there? So the Rebbe, my father told the Rebbe that I told him because I didn't want anyone else from Shamish the Rebbe, being that he always is there with the water. So I called him up. I took it on my achrais to call him. So he says, my father said that, but Avram spilled the beans. What happened? So the Rebbe said, Avram came to 770. My uncle Avram came to 770 at 5 after 3, and he bumps into Rabbi Grona. Rabbi Grona told him, "Oh, you came to the mincha with the Rebbe?" He says, "No, I came to get a seat." So Rabbi Grona said, "What? You came to get a seat?" He said, "What?" He didn't answer. Already, mit Mishen geschmeckt what was doing over here, and his head started to roll. After my father, so the Rebbe asked my father, "Where did you, where did you keep everything?" So my father said, it was all hidden away in the car. And as soon as, right after minute, we brought it in from the car. This way no one knew what happened. Then the Rebbe told him that I have to pay you for what the cost of the Farbrengen. And he gave him $20. That was the Stadtfuss. Again on Friday, the Rebbe called my father back into Yechidis, and he told him, he asked him what's doing with the Sikhe, with the English translation, and my father said that he's working on it. He gave it over to Nissen Mendel. And my father, the Rebbe told him that it's stupid, but he should know it's coming from me. You push him to take care of it. Then the Rebbe told him that I only gave you $20. I need to have the rest of the cheshbon for what the Farbrengen cost. So my father didn't want to take money at that time. I'm not going to get into the whole story that the Rebbe told him that when it's come to Yoni Tziburi, when you're putting out you have to take money. He told him a whole story what happened with Shmuel Gerari with the Rebbe Rashab, and when it comes to do in Yonim from Tziburim, you have to take the money. So the Rebbe said, "Listen, you should make sure to get me a bill for whatever it cost, and I'll see to give you back the money." He said, "But it's darf nicht sein, es kann sein nach Shabbos. You don't have to get it to me before Shabbos." So my father said like this: "For mashke, there's no bill. Weil get doch mit dem mashke vergarnished. The person of my father got the mashke." So the Rebbe said, "Whiskey, ist doch asach Geld." So where did the mensch was get the who's this guy who gives you mashke for nothing? So he said, my father told the Rebbe then that it was a few weeks ago that I wrote to the Rebbe a refuah shalema for a woman that was sick. This woman is this man's wife, and he tells the Rebbe that when this man heard the ma'aseh with the Rebbe, that the Rebbe in Shakemdach wasn't feeling well, he told my father like this: I love my wife very much, but my wife is only, I need my wife. The Rebbe, the ganze Welt darf doch haben the Rebbe. So the Rebbe is more important. So at first the Rebbe smiled, and then he became very serious. And he turned to my father and he told him, "Zogem as noch einmal soll nicht reden." He never should say this ever again. Weil der Eibishter hat genug Yorim verbeide. because God has enough years to provide for both of us, and therefore there's no reason that one should have to take the place of the other. And kach havatake, this lady is Baruch Hashem gesund, and the Rebbe is gesund, Baruch Hashem, Shalom Tevis. After, then he said, no, with the chalas. So he said like this, the chalas, my father made a cheshbon over there quickly, it's $65. So the Rebbe said, $20 I gave you already. $20 I'll let you be mishtatif, and the other $25, here it is. So he paid him up, and it was interesting. The Rebbe said, ich will nicht sein Eved Level Ish Malve, and therefore I have to make sure to pay you up, and kach hadem. It's interesting that Bechlal, from all the Yechidisin that my father had with the Rebbe, most of the times, not he wrote it down, nor did anyone else write it down. Punkt, that in Tavshin Lamed Ches, it happened to be that around that time, it was very, very often that my father was going into the Rebbe, and therefore I sat down and wrote some of the Yechidisin down to remember some of these points that should not be forgotten. Going through some of the notes, I found, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was that year or a year later in Lamed Ches or Lamed Tes. One day the Rebbe was coming back from Kriyas HaTorah, and he noticed that my father standing, it must have been the Zal upstairs, and he told him, ich her wegen die wilde Sachen. Getake gerät wegen wilde Sachen, aber nicht in jene Weg. I heard about your wild things, but when I spoke about wild things, I meant in the other direction. It seemed like the Rebbe was referring to the hospital, Lefitz General Hospital on Lefitz and Brooklyn Avenue that now is being built for Beis Rivka Mirz Hashem Bekar of Mamish. At that time, there was a question of losing the building. So the Rebbe was I guess at that time, the situation in the National Committee was something like it is today, and there was no money. So there was a question of losing it. My father wrote a settlement to the Rebbe. That day he had a meet with the doctors to give them the final check. So he wrote, Hayoim Boim Adaktorim. And he sent in a photostat copy of the check to the Rebbe. I guess he wanted to explain to the Rebbe that just like the photostat check that I sent you has no worth, likewise the check that I'm going to be giving to the doctors today isn't worth anything either. The Rebbe answered, he underlined Hayoim, and then he said, let me just check this out for a second, make sure I don't make any mistakes, and I think I'm turning the pages wrong. The Rebbe underlined Hayoim, and he said, Hayoim in Bekerle Sishmo, and this is what I refer to, Yavei Melech HaMashiach. I think this is an apropos answer to end tonight's talk, that in essence, what we are trying to do, what the Rebbe is working so hard on to bring Mashiach Tzidkenu, and plain and simple, it's nicht kein Chiddush what the Hayoim Bekerle Sishmo, but the fact of the matter is that this is also a lesson for every one of us. So many times we do things we don't know how we are going to succeed, how will we be successful. And let us hope that because of Mamish we should be zecher that the Rebbe should lead us to be Makabel Pnei Mashiach, the Rebbe should be Niskala, and we should be zecher should be Yakitzu Ranu Kol Sheikh Neyafar. As many of you know, I saw this evening when Mr. Sam Dome walked in, he got a round of applause. I'm sure that you didn't do it just out of seeing a person that looks a little bit different than us, but because of the great things that he's been doing for Am Yisrael, for the full page ads that he puts into newspapers in schus and in honor of the Rebbe, wishing the Rebbe Hatzlacha. Not many people, when they come here to the Rebbe, give the Rebbe a bracha. Most of the people that stand on line come here to receive the Rebbe's bracha. But every time that Mr. Sam Dome comes on Sunday, he makes sure to give the Rebbe a bracha himself. And one time, when he came to give to a Sunday, the Rebbe told him something very interesting. That if you want to make me happy, listen to this. The Rebbe said like this, if you want to make me happy, you should see to it that the National Committee should have money. Because if the National Committee will have money, I'll be happy and I'll be able to give brachas to everyone. And I want to tell you, halavai, all of us should listen to the Rebbe the way Mr. Sam Dome listens to the Rebbe and sees to it that the Rebbe should be happy and have nachas. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to you a true friend of the Rebbe, a true friend of Lubavitch, Mr. Sam Dome.